Hey, it's Wes from the 4x4 Canada podcast.
And this is Sam Devlin from MC Ranch Overland.
And it's Mike Offerhouse from MC Ranch Overland.
Thanks for coming on today, guys. Really looking forward to this conversation. We've had a couple of conversations beforehand, but I know this is just going to get better and deeper than what we've had before, and really looking forward to this for sure. Before we get into it, I just want to remind our listeners to check us out on YouTube at 4x4 Canada podcast. We have all our episodes on there as a static display, but you can listen to it on YouTube. I know a lot of people actually listen to YouTube and at work as well, too. Check us out on YouTube. We also have some product reviews coming up there as well, too, in the next couple months. And hit the like and subscribe and all that YouTube stuff. And I also want to mention next week, we have another BC company coming on next week. We have Matt from Front Row Off-Road. I don't know if you guys have heard of Front Row Off-Road.
No, that's a new name to me.
Yeah, he's a local BC boy who does the entire inflators and deflators with the hoses that go to all four tires.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that kind of idea. He's did a startup here and seen his product, really nice quality, and just proud to support another Canadian company trying to make it on the market. And Matt's a fellow off-roader, hence why he started that company. And another good conversation coming up with him as well, too. Can't wait for next week for Matt from Front Row Off-Road. In the meantime, we are talking with Sam and Mike from MC Ranch Overland. How are you guys doing today?
Excellent. Thanks. Yeah, Thanks so much for having us today, Wes. This is exciting. We've listened to your podcast often, and it's a lot of fun.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on board. I'm looking forward to it. As I mentioned, we've had some good conversations. Before we get into it, I want to throw the socials out there for people so they know how to get a hold of you guys and follow you guys. Basically, it's MC Ranch Overland on all the socials, as well as mcranchoverland.com. And I highly recommend people check out the MC Ranch Overland YouTube channel. There's some really great videos showcasing the products we're talking about. Sometimes it's hard to explain things audio or verbally, right? So I definitely recommend all our listeners go check out MC Ranch Overland on YouTube, and you can see what we're talking about when it comes to the Fire Reflactor, when it comes to all the different products, the cooking products and stuff like that. And it's just a better visual representation, right? So, and of course, hit the subscribe button because these guys are bringing out some new videos and they're making it work. So before we get into little bits and pieces, I want to mention you guys also have a new website up at MC Ranch Overland. It looks sharp, guys. It looks really good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been a fun journey. Like we've been together for a good while, but this last digital adventure, I'll call it, the creation of the latest website, it was a lot of fun. It was super exciting, a massive learning curve for us, the young team at Below that helped us come together with it. Was really good process. And the whole idea was to make it one more interesting and just create a better customer journey and experience for anybody. Like, go check us out. I think it was a lot of work and it turned out wonderfully.
I agree. It's nice and clean and simple. That's one of the big reasons I like it. A lot of these, they have a lot of websites, they have too much clutter, too much going on, and it almost gets to the point of an overload kind of idea. So your guys is nice and simple. You lay it out by manufacturer. You guys carry other manufacturers as well, but all the basics are on there. If you look at the Fire Reflector page, all the basics are there. What it is, why it works, how it works, and all the benefits to it, as well as some of your technical stuff. So it's clean, simple that way, and it just looks sharp.
Thanks again. Thank you.
So definitely go check it out, mcoverlandranch.com. Now, we've talked a few times offline, and one of the things that we've been talking about the overland community and how it's different than any other genre. And I think one of you guys asked me the other day, why does it feel that way? And I honestly don't know why it feels that way. I think a lot of it's to do with the nature and the camaraderie that we have when you're out in the nature. And the sitting around the campfire is one of those key elements of that. Some of the best conversations have happened around the campfire. The same with some of those best conversations that happen in the garage. We're wrenching on a vehicle, right? You're sitting there with your buddies and having a beer, and some of those best conversations are in that garage. But I definitely think that the campfire is a key component to the bonding between overlanders. And that's probably the best way to describe it, is that it's key to the bonding of the overlanding community. What do you guys think? You guys are overlanders. You guys love this as much as I do, and as much as our listeners. What is different about overlanding that makes this such an incredible genre?
I was just going to say, one of the uniqueness is that the day starts out with an adventure, likely. You never know what's going to happen. But in the evening, you always get some sort of a resolve at the end of the day. So it's like the campfire, and that community bit is like the holy grail of why you're out there in the first place. Everything that happens during the day is an unknown entity, and that creates complexity, but also excitement and adventure. But just to be able to sit back at the end of the day with like-minded people and basically tell lies around a campfire and how your Toyota is better than the next guy's Jeep, or joking.
That's not a lie, though.
No, that's one thing that I point out to many people, and it's not really about so much of why the culture is like that, what you're asking. But when I went to the plane rally this year in Washington, I can't tell you how many trucks were there. It was just insane. And I spent 4 days walking around acres and acres of overlanders camping and cooking and having fun and etc. And in that entire 4 days, I didn't even see a bottle cap on the ground. There wasn't a twist tie. There wasn't a little clip that you put on a loaf of bread, that little white plastic thing. There wasn't a cigarette butt. Just to be in the company of people that think that way intentionally, because it's not an accident. It's just the quality of the people. I'll never forget that, actually. It made such a statement in my mind, and it was a privilege to be in the company of people that are like that.
Yeah, I can't echo that enough. I think overlanders, and just really outdoor enthusiasts, but overlanders, they're a special type of adventurist, really. They, like yourself, Wes, and like the guys and people that you get on here, they actually get out. And the sense of wanting to find adventure and get out there, the expenditure of overlanders is that there's this mindset around what it is that you get onto to go out and do that adventure. And then what do you plan for and circle yourself with, not just the people, but the stuff and the gear, so that you just can enhance that experience, right? You're getting out, or you're getting away, and it doesn't even really have to be far, but you get to go and have this experience, whether it's new or adventure where you're getting to discover some really neat place. And then it's your ability to embrace that part of the adventure and truly experience it. And this is where my belief of this and Mike's is, and the whole purpose of our passionate business is that if there's anything we can do, invent, bring to the table and enhance that experience, that's really joyful for us. It's really a cool thing. And I think everybody, like Mike said, at the rallies, at the meetups, it's bouncing into somebody at the Home Depot parking lot with a truck and all of the gear on it, is you don't even have to say anything, but we always do. It's always a joyful, hey, how's it going? That shit's cool. All of these really wonderful things. And they're such energetically fun, wonderful humans to be around, because I think it's about just going out and enjoy what this world has to offer.
I'm going to throw a question out there that is often debated a lot. You see it on Facebook or your forums or whatever, and I ignore it because a lot of time people get into these discussions about it and there's no real answer because it's all based on opinion. But what is overlanding to you?
By definition, I would say it's vehicle supported adventure. I remember being, I think I was 6 years old, going up to Osoyoos with my dad. It was a week of the Hope slide, the giant slide that we had in Hope. And we didn't call it overlanding back then. It was getting in the station wagon and going out for a picnic or going, tenting, or for so many people, it was going hunting. Sam and his wife are skiers. You got to get to Whistler to go skiing. And then there's the breakover point. Are you going to stay in a hotel, or are you actually going to sleep in the back of your pickup or your station wagon? So the overlanding is a new term, but technically vehicle supported adventure or travel in my mind. That's the simplest definition.
I agree with you. And it has been around forever. Same thing as you. I remember being as a kid, 10 years old, we would take an annual trip ever since we realized probably 4 or 5, but taking a trip from Kamloops to over the Big Bar Ferry and up over the Mud Lakes and China Head and Poison Mountain and all those trips that are still very popular today. But we were doing them back in the 70s and 80s. And then it was just four-wheeling and camping. And now it has a new term to it, but I think it's just as enjoyable. And I really like seeing the new stuff come out, the technology that is coming out, whether it be your products or whichever. Rooftop tents have been out since the 60s and 70s. They just weren't quite as popular until 5 years ago or 10 years ago or whatever. But I do seeing a lot of these new products that are coming out. I'm simplistic. I don't need my phone to turn on the lights that are on my awning kind of idea like some people do. But it is really neat seeing how things have really progressed over those last 5-10 years where this has become more and more popular.
Yeah, I agree with the popularity piece has just engendered an innovative industry, really, about enabling people to get out. It's vehicle based. Now with that technology, we can get to places much easier than we could before in vehicles. So it's just a neat twist.
And it's really neat seeing, as us three sit here, we're 3 old white guys, but it's really neat seeing all the different people that are out overlanding or camping or four-wheeling and exploring. It's different races, it's different ethnic backgrounds, and it's different ages. It's everything from the 16-year-old kids right up to people. I know some guys are out there wheeling, they're 80 years old kind of idea, right? So it's really neat to see so much people from different backgrounds out there doing it.
Yeah, a lot of people bringing back the old vintage vehicles and doing the resto mods and stuff like that. And again, it's just the character of the people where when you buy something new, when we see somebody driving a Lamborghini and they're just a young kid, we say that they have their PhD, Papa has dough, right? You can go out and you can buy a brand new, beautiful vehicle or a Lexus or something like that. But when you actually curate your own vehicle and make it your own, it's one thing that made Harley Davidson so special, and so many other companies. But just being able to individualize your kit, and also once you use your kit, it ebbs and flows. You buy something and then you move up or change, something like that. But yeah, it's just a passion for preserving something that you've made, or again, you have your favorite axe, your favorite saw, all that type of stuff. So I think it all culminates into a genuine love for stuff and however it might impact you in a positive way.
It's just been so interesting that way. So Mike, I know you came up with the name, or you and your wife came up with the name of MC Ranch Overland, but maybe you can fill our listeners in on the beginning of MC Ranch Overland.
Yes, MC in the short version is for Mike and Carolyn, my wife and I. We've been lucky enough to rent some fairly large piece of property since we've been together the last 20 years. And Carolyn loves to entertain, have family over. And I like to cook over open fire, and our properties have allowed us to have a fire. But yeah, a term of endearment, our friends' family would call our home the MC Ranch. Let's go to the MC Ranch and we're going to get fed properly. But with myself, how I'm interested in kind of the ranch and cowboy lifestyle, one of the biggest ranches to ever exist in the United States actually covered 4 states, Oregon, Idaho, Nevada, and California. And that was an over 1 million acre ranch called the MC Ranch. So it was one of the most famous ranches that was started, I think in the 20s or something like that. And William Kittredge, whose grandfather started the ranch, became quite a world famous author and orator of what is known as cowboyology, for lack of a better term, where people would tell the stories of the tenacious and intrepid buckaroos, and with a Spanish influence where they called them vaqueros and stuff like that. So he used to write true stories and fictional stories about pushing cattle. And you can't push cattle if you don't have horsemanship and that equestrian background. And I always found a lot of romance in that. And there's a lot of community and pecking order when you work on these ranches. And that's culture. And it's a positive culture. Hard work, hard play, real men, real women, working hard daily and reaping the benefits of it. So that kind of speaks a bit to our culture, curing the best that our community has to offer and trying to strive for excellence and make a statement in our community as well. A positive statement.
Yes. Yeah. So we'll just roll into some of the things that you guys do at MC Ranch Overland. Basically, you manufacture and sell, for lack of better terms, overland equipment, but a lot of it is related to the campfire, which we talked briefly about before, as that is a center of the activity at the nighttime. Your flagship product is the Fire Reflactor. It's so simple, it's effective, and maybe you can explain to our listeners what the Fire Reflector is and how you came up with that idea, and then also how it works.
A number of years ago, the idea, the invention is Mike. So this concept came from Mike and his wonderful experience of outdoors and being around campfires. And so the 4 aluminum panels, and Mike can go into more of the detail, came about. It is called the original Fire Reflector because it is made of 10 gauge aluminum, and it is a reflector. It's not an absorber or a radiant thing. It is actually the best possible alloy type of metal to reflect the heat generated by either a fire, a ground size fire, a ground source fire, or a fire can or a fire pit. And so that reflection is, when you get to experience it, is a really great performance idea. And the other enhancement of that experience is the light that gets that. That whole passion, the passion behind it, the passion that created it, and Mike, you can do the description of the product itself, is our passion around being around the campfire and creating. And in our purposeful nature of life is we own fire. We want to be the Nike of fire, if you will, and to create and enhance that experience. And this is the original product. This is the foundation of it. And now our purpose is to create, curate, bring in brands and other products that encircle, work with, and create this wonderful experience around the campfire. And Mike, please tell everybody about the invention.
Yeah, so I honestly don't remember what started my little time clock going off and doodling on the back. I when you have a pad of paper and all the paper's gone, you're just left with that piece of cardboard on the back. And I actually was working with Sam for his construction company, and we had a sheet metal manufacturer, and I had done a shop drawing on this piece of cardboard, and ended up having 6 prototypes made of this product. The idea behind the product is when you shape it around a fire, it's generally in a parabolic shape. And if you're familiar with the antennas that point into outer space to get radio waves in and data, the radio waves come, they hit the parabolic piece of the antenna, and then it goes back to a fulcrum where the data is collected. And it's the same principle with the original Fire Reflector. You position it in such a way, it doesn't have to be very close to the fire, usually at least 2 feet away. Flames never have to touch. You don't want the flames touching them. And with a medium, small ground fire, you can feel the heat 20, 30 feet away at night. It's crazy. And then you have the ability to close it up a little bit more to cover your fire, to create a controlled environment for cooking, for example. And then Sam already had mentioned the light. So when you navigate your campsite, I personally don't like to have a whole bunch of LEDs on all over the place. So this usually provides enough light that you can navigate your campsite for the most part. And then again, when I'm cooking, I work from the other side of the fire reflector where there's no heat at all. And that way I'm not tripping over my audience that I'm cooking for, knocking their beers over and tripping over the dogs and dog leashes, et cetera, et cetera. And again, I have no heat at all, and people still can enjoy that glow, which Sam has coined the arena of engagement. And the story behind the arena of engagement is the more comfortable people are in the outdoors, the more extroverted they become, conversations get better, and the memories get better. So it all culminates down to just our innate feeling that humans have to be warm and cozy and comfortable and in good company.
I couldn't have said it better. That is a perfect example of more comfortably feel around these people. And it doesn't help that it might have a whiskey into you or something like that, but the more vulnerable and talkative we become, right? And growing that bond between each other. Now, as you guys know, I recently spent some time with my mom taking care of her down at the Kelowna Hospital. We were in a hotel room at night, and I'd shown her your original fire reflector. And she had a couple of questions that I thought were good questions. I knew the answers to them, but maybe if you can do a quick follow-up and explain to our listeners some of these answers that she had. First of all, doesn't it get hot?
Does not get hot. It's usually ice cold. If it starts getting hot, you have it way too close to the fire. It doesn't help the performance. It's not the intention. And that's why safety is one of the pillars in being responsible and using it outdoors. So if you have a child or something and it was made out of stainless steel, it would just get hotter and hotter through the night and somebody could scald themselves on it. But this in no way ever gets hot.
Yeah, aluminum as an oil, as a product, is the one in metal or alloy that doesn't absorb the heat. It works. Eventually, that's what it ended up being because it performs the best for this function.
Yeah, that's what I explained to her, is that aluminum does not absorb heat like all the other metals do. If it was just regular tin or something like that, then yeah, it would definitely get hot. But being aluminum, it doesn't. And it actually almost repels it, kind of idea, right? Yeah. One of the other questions that she had was, does the smoke stain the material, or not, I guess, the smoke, but all the different sparks or whatever, does that end up staining the material over time?
Yes, it could. Some people actually like that. That's heirloom quality. We had an early adopter that has had one now for about 4 years. And I saw her at the plane rally that I was just describing earlier. And I offered her a brand new one. And she says, you couldn't tear the old one away from me because I remember every story, every grease stain. But mine tend to stay in pretty brand new condition, even though I've been using the same one for a couple of years. If it starts, you want to avoid the flames touching it, and you want to avoid the smoke like inundating it. But it's supposed to be far enough away from the fire, which none of that is a concern.
Right. And then the last question that Mom had is, before I showed her some more in-depth pictures, is, does it have feet? How does it stand up properly?
In that parabolic shape, it's self-supporting, basically.
Right.
If you were to put it in a straight line, it would not support itself. But in that C shape, for lack of a better term, or a more coveted shape where you have the two sides parallel, it has a lot of innate or integral stability.
Right.
We do have little tabs on the bottom, which are designed for a 10-inch Ardox nail, or you can just put a stick through it if you're in particularly windy conditions. But I've yet to ever have to do that.
As the reflector, one of the really awesome things about it, the other performance benefit, is that it is a wind shield or wind break, which on its own is a higher performance element than just the heat reflectivity. And generally you would set it up so that the wind hits the back of it, then you wouldn't need to peg it down at all. And then it blocks the wind. It helps the resource. So if you're burning wood over a period of hours, or you're burning propane with one of your fire cans, our experience and all of the people that are using it, we're burning about 50% of the amount of wood we would in the shielded non-wind environment. And in similar results with the propane, about half, mostly because you don't have to crank it as much. So you're burning less fuel in actual, and it's giving you the same BTU output because of the added reflective stuff. So all of these things have just been wonderful discoveries as we've continued to use it and gotten feedback from all of the other users. So it's been really wonderful news.
One of those unexpected things.
Absolutely. It's been brilliant. Yes.
I do want to mention the wind is a very good thing, using it as a wind protector as well. We did an interview with Johnny from Ranch Overland last December, and he mentioned when we're talking to him about products, and he mentioned that he had a original fire protector from you guys, and he basically told us how it, in his eyes, it basically saved his life the winter before. The wind was so cold in there, and with the heat from the fire, he's able to keep warm, but it also cut the wind down was the big thing. So he could keep that warmth going. And he might have over-dramatized it a little bit, but that's some YouTubers' ways to do things. But in all seriousness, the fact that it does cut down to that wind not only helps keep you warm, but it's also reflecting that heat back from you or onto you. So it actually overall keeps you almost double as warm as it would if you're just sitting out there in the wind.
Yeah. It's a cumulative effect, Wes. And I remember that, I think it probably was on your podcast when an interview, Johnny was, if you remember this story, it was actually in a snowstorm or a blizzard or something, and he had it out. And if you can block the heat and at the same time your heat source or the resource that you're burning is reflecting heat and it's enhancing its volume, he's an awesome story to tell that one, because he called it a lifesaver. That was an awesome thing.
Yeah, the other thing with the feet that we put on there for the stake or RDOX nail to hold it in place, with the fire reflector right now, we have a few thousand of them out in the world, but as more people have them and they become more familiar, Wes, you could use yours for the cooking and mine for the campfire, but later you can blend two of them together. You overlap the first panel with the caricature on it of the fire, and then you just put a little stake in the ground there just to hold them together. And now you'll have a bigger nest, more people, more community. Like I said, they're designed to work together. Obviously, there's a ratio proportion thing. Eventually, you can't have so many of them, but we have tried it with 2 or 3 fire reflectors. And actually, one of our early adopters, the Epic Family Road Trip, Peter and Carol and family, they used it on Vancouver Island in torrential rain when they were with Sean from the Story Till Now. And they had 2 fire reflectors set up, and then a 10 by 10, like a tent that you would have at a show or something like that. And they said without it, they would have been screwed.
A lot more miserable.
Yeah, exactly.
So I want to go back to something that you mentioned earlier, Mike, about cooking from the outside. Now, I know you love your campfire cooking, and we'll get into some of that stuff in a little bit, but you recently went out to Vancouver Island and camped overnight with Chrome from Van City Van Life. Awesome guy, really great character. I'm sure most of our listeners have heard of him. If you haven't, check him out on Van City Van Life. But I do recommend our listeners go to that episode and watch this episode where Mike was cooking a wonderful meal, but I noticed that you were going around the outside of the ring to do all your moving your pots or whatever you had to do. You were doing it mostly from the outside of the ring, which I thought was quite interesting.
Yeah. So again, the fire reflector is reflecting heat inward towards the people that are sitting in front of the campfire. But it's when you go around the back of the fire reflector, there's absolutely no heat at all. A few things are going on there. In the summertime, you might be in bare feet or flip-flops or something like that.
Right.
You don't really want to approach a real fire. There's little coals that can shoot out, and stepping on those things isn't particularly pleasant. So you're protected that way, but also just having that heat on your thighs. And again, Cruzy was there. Cruzy had a leash. Chrome was there. We were sharing a beer. My beer was down by my chair. And if I was walking back and forth trying to get that cooking done and tripping over them, it's not very pleasant for me. And it's just another feature of the fire reflector. Yeah. Now, you mentioned earlier that, or Sam did, that with the fire reflector, now that we have more of them out in the world, people email us and saying, oh yeah, but it does this and it did this for us. For example, Epic Family Road Trip, they were on a beach in Texas, and they sent me an email after this had happened, and they figured it was hot enough out, it was Texas, and they made lunch, and then they went to eat their lunch, and it was all covered in sand. So they had to throw everything away and start again. And then again, the fire reflector saved the day. They put the fire reflector out, stopped the sand from blowing into their food, and success.
Yeah.
One of my interesting discoveries when we get together as a group and at the ranch at Mike and Carolyn's place, one of the really wonderful things to see is when we're a family and gathered around that is Mike's beautiful little granddaughters show up, and around the campfire, the original fire reflector is a safety protector. And so on the backside, the kids are allowed to come and approach the fire from behind that. And then they're just a couple of feet tall, and the panels are 2 feet. And so their head and shoulders are above the panel, and they stick the forks on the things and roast the marshmallows or wieners from the safety of the backside of the shield. It's very fun to watch, funny to see what happens, especially when they light everything on fire, which is normal. And it's just another delightful benefit that we discovered.
And that's something that my mom did mention when she's asking about it getting hot, because that was one of her concern, was that if kids touch it, it's going to end up burning them. They know fire's bad. Don't go, near the fire, but you know how kids are. So when I mentioned that when it was aluminum and it does not get hot, that satisfied her inquiry about that.
Yeah. And that situation I just described, Wes, with the kids and that, if you say it's hot and stuff, they would do it, but they're still going to touch just to determine how hot, of course, right? And so they can literally put their hands on it. If it's a really big fire and stuff, it does get warm and hot. And so you're going to do that. But unlike other metals, like if iron or stainless steel gets hot and you put your hand on it, your skin stays behind, right? This is a wonderful safety feature that we discovered with the actual making of the product.
Yeah, I've seen lots of people use it, like mentioned Epic Family Road Trip. They're big fans of the Fire Reflector and that. And once you see it being used, it all makes sense, right? It all kind of ties in together. So related to campfires, you guys have a new product that's just come out called the Harvester. And I guess you call it like a firewood carry bag, but it also, you can store your axe and saws and stuff like that. Maybe you can let our listeners know, what is the Harvester?
In the spirit of overlanding or traveling in a vehicle just to get somewhere and calling it overlanding, people are very concerned about their space. And also it's nice to stay organized, obviously, for safety reasons and a lot of other reasons when you're in the outdoors. The thought behind the Harvester is that it's one place that you can keep your gloves, your axe, your saw, stays folded up. It's nominally about 30 inches by an inch thick and about 11 inches tall. And it just sits like a briefcase in between your fridge or other flat surface, which you typically have in overlanding vehicles, because you usually have a table sitting on edge, and then you have your fridge, and then you have something else. So that vertical orientation is the Harvester is sympathetic to fitting in those places. But when you go out in the woods and you have a sharp saw or a sharp axe and you're walking over slippery logs, et cetera, it's just a recipe for disaster. The idea is you carry it in the woods. You can also open it and put your chainsaw in it if you like. The only thing with me, I wrap my chainsaw in a towel so I don't get the chain oil on it. But you can carry what you need into the woods safely, harvest your wood, bring it back to camp safely, everything conveniently in one package. And also it's ergonomic. So if it's only a short distance where you're going 15, 20 or 50 feet, you can just use the briefcase style handle that's on it, but it also comes with a padded shoulder strap. So again, wood over your shoulders comfortably, tools put away safely. And then the construction of it has ultra high molecular weight plastic panels in it. So when you're carrying uneven objects in there, like your saw, it could be the handle of your axe, it could be a knot that's on a piece of wood, it doesn't telegraph through to your hip and your leg when you're carrying it. There's a lot of ergonomics in the design as well.
And the material is really a heavy duty industrial Cordura grade fabric, and with all of the industrial stitching and seaming so that it's going to stick together. And again, this last thing is our corporate colors with orange, the reflective orange and the tan military and black. So MC Ranch Overland colors. We had woven that into the Cordura product. And then we had the reflective orange product, which we also have on the Fire Reflactor inside panel. And the entire inside, instead of multi-pan colored before, is now this really bright reflective orange, because in the event that you are stuck out somewhere or you're lost or you break down, you can open it up and lay it out, and it's this bright orange reflective safety thing. So this was a tip that we got. We take our feedback and we build it right into the product. That's just another added bonus as well.
And you won't lose it when you set it down in the bush, right? So
yeah, that's right.
I had a friend that had a fabric chainsaw cover and it's camouflage because he thought, hey, that's camo, that's cool, whatever. He set it down and then it took us 15 minutes to find it.
No doubt. That's awesome.
He said, I guess that wasn't such a cool idea.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, utilize camo, judiciously. So that's it. So yeah, one of our things, I foresee that in our products that we're going to continue to do. In the overlanding thing, there's the camo stuff, and I think because it's cool and looks great stuff. But I love that our corporate colors, we're going to make up what we'll call an MC Ranch Overland camo, and it's highly visible, right? So it's going to have the black and the gray and the tan and the bright orange in the camo pattern.
Yep.
And that's going to help represent us, so you can be seen and heard in the great outdoors.
So I think that's a pretty neat idea. The harvester, I recommend people, our listeners, go to the MC Ranch Overland YouTube channel. Mike has done a great video there where basically lays it all out in the line, where the extra pockets are to hold your folding saw and your axe and your gloves and that, right up to using as a firewood carrier and that strap that he talked about. So definitely recommend everybody go check it out, MC Ranch Overland, and check out the video on the harvester. It's easier to explain it in video than it is over audio, or their website as well too. So the website's got a lot of really good pictures on it as well too. Now, speaking of saws, you guys also carry the Agawa folding buck saws and their axes, and they're I think by far the best saws and axes you can buy in Canada. We had an interview with them last November. Great guys, great stories. The product is mostly made in Canada.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
That's one of those things. I think this goes back west to, like you said, about community and great people. We've been super fortuitous in the relationships and the friendships we've been able to build. And that one is just a fantastic example. Agawa, Graham Beck and his ownership group and the team that they have there, since the very first time we got introduced to each other, we've loved this industry. We think similarly. We're trying to both build amazing products to support this industry. Their products are awesome. Graham and his team at Agawa have been a natural partner, and we represent all of their products on our website. I'm very proud of them.
Yeah, they started off with their folding buck saws, and they got 3 different sizes, I believe it is now. And the quality has been top notch. But these guys come from the canoe world, where they would canoe into a campsite, and so they're not able to bring chainsaws like you and I can on their trucks, right? And a lot of times I find that the chainsaw can be a bit of a pain in the butt. Even the electric ones can be a bit of a pain in the butt. They take up lots of space. And going with these folding buck saws is a nice, simple way going, and they work. I've had a couple other saws where it takes a bit to get going, but the Agawa ones actually cut quite well. Been really impressed with them.
And they fold up. Like, it's just perfect they fold up to practically nothing. Basically, It feels and looks like a knife sheath. The other thing is that their products, both the axe, the hatchet that has the extended handle, which I think is a wonderful invention from them, and the way their saws fold up, they fit perfectly. It's part of the reason we just did small envelopes to slip that into our harvester. That package just works brilliantly together. Whoever wants to work with it.
Yeah, my folding saw is just so easily accessible in the truck. It's just right there. So
yeah,
it a lot of times easier to use that than it is to get the chainsaw out for sure. So now I know you guys stick with that whole campfire theme, and we talked about that earlier. That's the central core of great conversation. And one of the other things that you guys are carrying is, I don't even know what to call it, the TJM stuff. Can you explain to our listeners what the hell I'm talking about?
I'll introduce what TJM is, and Mike is the outdoor enthusiast cook expert that really loves it. TJM is TJM Metalworks. Trevor, his wife Rowan and his son run a handcrafted artisanal style ironworks shop in Essex, England. We got introduced to them and loved his products because they are lifetime heirloom style. He hand twists and batters them. And that setup is cooking accessories. And those things go perfectly on the fire, outdoor camping. It has a fire pit and a bunch of other products. Their cooking accessories, the grills, what was modified, he's updating his website and stuff as we're speaking now. But the fire pit combination with the cooking accessories, having that equipment, again, that's been a wonderful experience. Anybody who loves the outdoor camping over a campfire, over a fire pit, or with their fire pit in the combination, all of these and these cooking accessories essentially and fire pit accessories just make it a wonderful experience when you have that. And for overlanders, because it's like metal and you have to have the space and things for it. Yeah, it's an outdoor cooking enthusiast's dream to work with really great products, right?
Yeah.
And definitely. It's funny, these products are made, Trevor's in Essex, England, and they just happen to be very cowboy-esque. They really have that 100-year-old vibe. It's not just a function of him welding them together and making them, but he actually has beautiful hammering on them and detailing. So when you've used one, typically when I come home from a trip, I'll wash it in the kitchen and then I'll put it in the oven, the pieces, and I'll get it really nice and hot. And then I'll take it out and put it on the stove, and I put a little bit of olive oil on it. And it's just like shining your favorite cowboy boots. You put that olive oil on and it turns it just into this beautiful piece of jewelry again. Again, I was talking earlier about overlanders and what makes them unique. And it's this pride of ownership and respect for other people's efforts and the beautiful products they make. And that's why our brand is focusing not on MC Ranch Overland being manufacturers and trying to do something better than somebody else that's already doing it. We're honoring our community by propping up our community and all the people that are in it doing a spectacular job already. And that's what we're pushing to the forefront. All these people, products, stories are all special, curated, and under one roof, the MC Ranch.
I think that that's a way to do it, though, because you guys have come up with two very unique products under the MC Ranch Overland name. But if there's already somebody out there doing something that fits into your mindset of quality and innovation, etc., then, like you say, why not help them prop them up and use and sell their products at the same time? There's something new that you come up with. You guys might have more products coming up that through your own activities that you found that you may make. But again, if there's something out there that's working excellent, why not help? Why not work with them?
Yeah. And we're privileged because all our partners fit that description right now specifically.
Yeah. And I love very intentional about who we are. I live for this part more for the community, right? My whole thing about getting involved in outdoor experience and that is actually doing it and sharing it with other people. And we've met all of these wonderful people, innovators, builders in that same space. And it's really who we are to support that whole concept of innovative products, fun stuff, and enhance the experience of getting outdoors, getting around a campfire and sharing it. It just all comes back to that passion.
Sam being with Toastmasters and public speaking, And he's also with the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society. It makes it very easy for Sam to have an arena to do what he does best, and that's to tell stories around the beautiful scotches. So at a lot of these events, Sam is the presenter for a beautiful Scotch tasting, and some of our very new special guest partners and friends that we meet get to enjoy that. So this whole thing is giving Sam that platform where he can express himself.
Yeah. We haven't really touched on that. You can have more than just one passion. So outdoors and campfires and the passion of that is, I love Scotch whiskeys, Irish whiskeys, and have done a number of organized tastings and presentations. And it is a ton of fun when we get around overlanders or we're at a rally or anything, and I bring in beautiful lineup of introductory and special and some of custom whiskeys. And again, it comes back to telling stories. I get to tell some truthful nonsense about where all this wonderful stuff comes from, and it's a really fun to bond with people. And I have a ton of fun, and just it's a learning experience that we share around the campfire. So it's great.
I remember a couple of years ago at the BC Overland Rally, you guys did a beginner an introduction to Scotch night where people would bring their own drinks and pass them around. Is that something? See, that's something I should have done because I honestly don't know much about Scotch. I don't drink a lot of hard alcohol, but I have an interest in it. So you and I are going to have to get together one night and go over a few things.
That's the fun part about it is I love educating and not so much for, again, that event you just talked about, Wes, that's a fun event because people you bring a specific bottle as an individual. It could get a little out of hand because you've got to learn your own taste and things. I think the last circle gathering of whiskeys and introductions, there were 32 bottles presented. And so you could get passed around. And the wonderful thing is the individual who wanted to present that bottle based on whatever story it is, you get to tell your story and you get to educate people about what it is, where it comes from, why you're willing to share that with other people. And again, it just turns into a learning experience that people can enjoy. And you don't even have to like it, right? It's about tasting and learning what you do or don't. And sometimes it's just a lot of fun that people get to learn something they didn't know before and learn that they do some of it. And some people hate it. It's just yet another experience that we get to bring to the outdoor experience.
So is Scotch, because I don't know a lot about Scotch and I don't want to get too much into it here, but because we could probably talk for another hour about it. But Scotch, is that a lot of like wine where you have your different versions and there's different tastes throughout the broad range of Scotch or whiskeys?
Oh, huge. The range is unbelievable. That's another 2 or 3 podcasts, Wes. Absolutely passionately love to be able to do that. But just the whole experience, Irish whiskeys, Scotch whiskeys, blended whiskeys, and that. There is, just like wines, comes from all over. Scotch is from Scotland, however, and the tastes range dramatically. And so peated to non-peated, all of that stuff. I'd love to talk to people about it. And in the tastings, the neat part about it is if you do a tasting and you go from the different regions, lighter whiskeys, medium, molded, flavored, sherried, all the way up to peated whiskeys, and you do this progression with people and they get to assess it. They don't have to be told what's cool about it. They just get to assess whether they like peated, wooded, sherry infused, or other peated stuff and learn their own taste profile and respect and understand what those others are. And that to me is a wonderful, that's the teacher in me. I love to get people to know what they love.
You have 2 very expensive hobbies, overlanding and whiskey.
You are correct. Just ask my wife. Absolutely.
So,
Mike, are you a Scotch or whiskey fan?
I do like Scotch. I like Scotches. There are a lot. It can be quite an expensive hobby. So let's just put it that way. I'm focusing all my earnings to MC Ranch Overland for a little while before I start having a Scotch lineup. But honestly, if it was for me, I'd be a bourbon guy. So
Oh, yes.
I really like the uniqueness of bourbons and stuff like that. And to get a really good bourbon, they're getting particularly expensive these days. So it's a special occasion thing. But yeah, I enjoy all sorts of things. I can be wearing a cowboy hat and a slicker one day, and then I could just as well be happy in a suit at a fine restaurant somewhere. So I enjoy culture. I enjoy fine food. I enjoy cooking. I'm not going to call myself a chef or anything like that. Everything I've learned, it's just horse sense and gumption and experimenting. It's pretty hard to wreck a meal if you use good ingredients. My mom taught me how to cook Indonesian food a little bit. So that's something I like to spring on people from time to time. Chrome was forced to eat it the other day. Seems like, but yeah, all those type of things. My family was into extremely high-end German, like firearms, hunting rifles and things like that. When I lived in Holland as a little boy, the person that did all the equestrian leather work for the royal family in Holland taught my brother how to do leather work. So subsequently, he taught me, and then I've taught my boys as well. So again, if I'm out in the bush and I have a beautiful axe, I've usually made the sheath for it, or the beard, or the same for my favorite knife or something like that. Yeah, I'm interested in lots of things.
Let's roll back to the cooking thing. Now, ever since Instagram came out and a little bit less on the YouTube side, there's been a thing with this whole overlanding community about showing off the cooking. And I have to admit, because I have a lot of friends on Instagram and you got guys on YouTube like Just Eating Adventures, Dwayne, him and his wife do incredible camp meals. It's actually driven me to cook more than craft dinner and smokies when I'm out camping.
Yeah.
And usually I was pretty good. But this year I've stepped it up just because of watching a lot of my friends showing off their cooking, whether in person or whether on Instagram. And I find that obviously prep is one huge thing to it. You can't just do no prep or stop at the grocery store on the way out. You usually got to do some food prep a couple days beforehand. Makes it a lot easier. But what are some of your guys' favorite meals when you're out camping?
I'm going to introduce Mike in this particular sense. That the cooking genre thing, I have going to all of these rallies in events and outdoor camping, we're meeting people like Marco and that do the cooking shows almost. We're going to probably morph into an MC Ranch Over cooking show because Mike is a preparedness nut. When he prepares a meal and thinks through it, it is so fun to go on a camp trip or anything with him because the week before the camp trip, every day I'm talking to Mike and he goes, oh yeah, and by the way, I'm bringing this stuff and we're going to cook that stuff and it's going to be so much fun. And I'm like, great. And I'm going to pair it up with this whiskey and we're going to do that. And it's so much fun. But the prepared, this is where the overlanding piece switches over to the survivalist and the preparedness piece. That is an overlanding. You get your stuff together, you prep your meals and these wonderful foods, quality foods and all of that sort of stuff. You can bring the smokies and the marshmallows too, but it makes it so much more fun. You're engaged. This also enhances why the cooking accessories and all the other stuff we get to do around the campfire just makes that experience just way better. And I'm going to say my favorite thing, just so Mike can talk about his, is when I go on these things, Mike is the cowboy cook, Chef Boyardee extraordinaire with his cooking with the pans, the Dutch oven, and the products that we use and he uses. He's made some amazing meals. And I'm just going to say one of the best was this cowboy chili that was made up in the Dutch oven and then served in a half melon shell right there in the camp chairs and then sprinklings of cheese and stuff on it. Mike, that was extraordinary. And there's been 20 other ones. If you're ever not necessarily out in the deep woods, Mike does an amazing lobster pizza too. Mike's passion and love comes through when we're out camping and he's cooking. It's just awesome to be part of.
Yeah, the interesting thing is, like Scotch, a lot of people are interested in cigars as well. And when you commit to a cigar, especially a good cigar, because again, they're not cheap. Good cigar starts at about $40 sort of thing for one cigar. So when you pick a cigar, you pick the size, the ring size, and how long that cigar will smoke for. And what that does is it forces you to carve out a particular amount of time to enjoy that experience and the partner or the person that you're experiencing it with. And when you go out camping and you cook a hot dog and huck it at somebody, it's one thing. But when you try to endeavor to plan a meal that's special, or at least the best you can do, it takes time. So the same way that Sam can engage with somebody at a Scotch tasting, I can create a moment in time, which we know it's going to take to prepare the food, cook the food, and eat the food, where you're living in the moment intentionally, which is something where these days people just have to be fast on their feet just to get through the day. But that commitment in time, I think, is really valuable to the whole curated campfire community experience that, again, is signature to our brand. So I like to describe it that way. It's not just that you're going to get a good meal out of this, it's also dedicating that time.
And I think a lot of times when you look at, say you're hanging out, you got some people over at your house, half the time the kitchen is the center of that gathering. Right. It doesn't matter if there's a football game on. Half the people are in the kitchen talking, and somebody's working on this, another person working on that. And the conversation and the laughter and all that, it goes back to the same thing with the garage, and then rolls back through to the same thing with the campfire.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%. That's what, it's funny you said that, because for years, ever since we've had this brand, I was using that analogy, saying when you were a kid and you go to a house party, where were all the fun people? Were they not the people half drunk in the living room, all flaked out like this, or trying to kiss a girl for the first time? The people that are having fun are in the kitchen. And that's what it's all about, with the holy grail at the end of the day, of engaging around a campfire.
Yeah, it's where it's at. Right, yeah. Wes, your comment about half the time, in my experience with the circle of friends and everything there, it's 95% of the time. The party's in the kitchen. When we renovated the kitchen, I made it bigger with just a huge island, because we've got big family, 6 kids and stuff. And so when everybody's here and their partners in the kitchen, everybody's there, everybody gets to participate. That's where the love is shared. That's where the community is built. That's same as the campfire.
Yeah. I've really been working, as I mentioned earlier, to cook better. And a lot of times I cook better when I'm camping than I do at home. Sometimes, because you get home at, say, 6:00 at night or whatever, and you got to cook a meal. And that's where, again, prep work comes in really handy. I spend a good part of my morning doing prep work this morning. But I think that I've really been working towards on cooking better meals and stuff like that. And I've done a thing where one of my goals this year is to cook something different every time I go out. And that's really been pushing me, because I've camped almost 30 nights this year. So that's really been pushing me to do it. And it's just a nice little challenge to try and do that. Usually I'll cook it at home first to make sure it actually is okay. And then next time I'll go out and try it out in the camping. But I noticed, Mike, that going back to that video with you and Chrome from Van City Van Life, that everything you do is cast iron.
Actually, I'll have to correct you on that one. I'll have beautiful cast iron Dutch ovens. The one I was using in that video is actually made by GSI, and it's anodized aluminum. Right. And it doesn't weigh anything, and nothing sticks to it. It's really nice. So one of the conversations that Chrome and I had, if I'm overlanding or just going out camping, I have a lot more latitude when it comes to time. So I can let a cast iron Dutch oven give it the time it takes to cool down, to put it back and pack it away. That's why I particularly took that piece of kit, because that piece of kit I keep always with me, but I want to show it to Chrome, because that cools down instantly. Nothing sticks to it. You can just wipe it out with a paper towel, and it doesn't need as much care. And then when, again, he has to be faster on his feet. He's out there specifically to shoot a YouTube, and his van is his home. So he's in that vehicle every day. So that's why I brought that one. It's an excellent piece of kit. But I absolutely do love the cast iron. But again, the thing that's with the cast iron is, again, the heirloom quality and just the beauty of it.
Yeah, I just started getting into cast iron this year, and I picked up some used pieces at garage sales and that. And I've got a friend that does an excellent job of stripping them down. He does electrolysis with it and redoes them. And so I gave him a couple to redo for me. And he's like, these things are from like the 50s, he goes, and he's looking at another one, and he was doing another one for another person, and it was from the 1920s. And he's been actually had some stuff that's been older. So there's something about that too, that you're holding something that's 100 years old and you're still cooking with it.
Yeah.
It
says everything about, isn't that the cool part?
Yeah.
That's an overlanding thing, is having cool stuff and having quality kit, no matter what it is. Just, I heard the pride of ownership in your voice there, Wes. It's cool to have great stuff and still be able to enjoy it, and it performs unbelievably well.
And that goes back to that TJM stuff that you guys are working. That very easily could still be around in 100 years because it's basic metal and the quality on it. It's stuff that's going to last, as well as your fire reflector too. You mentioned,
that'll last for 100 years for sure.
Yeah. You've mentioned that you've got some users have had them for years and they refuse to give them up, right? So
yeah, exactly. There's one piece of 100-year-old kit that didn't exist, which I think is the first piece of kit that anybody should buy. It doesn't matter what they drive, is a quality refrigerator. And if you can get one that's got the refrigeration on one side, a freezer on the other side, I think that is the one piece of kit that I would give everything else up to keep. Modern piece of kit.
Yeah, because you get to actually, it's the part that lets you take good food and travel with it. Because I love your idea about trying to do something different every time you go out west. That's a brilliant way to look at just creating more fun in your adventure.
Yeah.
The fridge, actually, I hear that often in the other podcasts and experiences that other people are doing. It has been the modern piece of equipment, the fridge, that has enabled quality food and for people to do and have this much more fun with that experience, right? It's just getting out there and still having refrigerated food. It's amazing.
Yeah. And I didn't understand that until I actually got a fridge, because and I got heck from it from the ex-wife. You spent $1,000 or $1,200 or $1,300 or whatever it was for my Dometic. But after the first summer of using it and not having half filled with ice or water and stuff like that, like, ended up making sense for her and more sense to me. I was still not 100% sure when I bought it. What is this more of a gimmick? Is this more of a overlanding thing with an overland tax on it? Or what is this all about? And after a summer of using it in 35 or 38 degree weather, it totally made sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mike, you have a really great looking Tacoma. Let's just touch base on that real quickly. You run the alley cab on it and the alley cab awning, and great looking truck. Maybe just give our listeners a quick rundown on that.
Yeah, so way back in the day, I was driving to work. Construction was my livelihood for most of my life. So I was on the road very early in the morning, and I was driving actually past Sam's neck of the woods through Coquitlam, and there was a Honda dealer there. And this truck that I have now was sitting on a display lift in the front, and I just went by at 4:30 in the morning, and I could see it had skinny tall tires on it, and that's what I like. I usually run 3310s, 255/80 R17s or whatever they are. And it was also the desert tan color. And so when I got to work, I Googled it and found it, and it had a manual transmission in it, which is critical for me as well. So the following Saturday, I went to the dealer with my son, and I traded in my almost brand new 4Runner, and I bought it. And what I didn't know, and what the dealership didn't know, is all the things that it had already done to it. It had suspension work, it had tires and wheels, it had welded on rock sliders, it had a Southern style front bumper with a remote control winch in there. So it already had some pretty decent work done to it, and had the manual transmission. So I bought it, and that's where it all started. And then eventually down the road, there was a local guy who was selling a Habitat that the Overland Habitat, which was one of the only ones in Canada at the time, and he had only used it for his business for a display model. So I bought that and then just started chipping away at it. I'm a ham radio operator. I put ham radio in it, my military ham radio antenna, because I have a bit of I'm not going to humbly or loosely saying I was involved with search and rescue in the North Shore Mountains here. And so, and survival and preparedness has always been something I've been interested in. So when I built my truck, I tried to incorporate a lot of things that could be used for more than one purpose. So we were just talking about a fridge. That fridge could just as well come in my house if it needed to. It'd be in my house in 2 minutes. Same with my solar charger. I have an EcoFlow solar charger. If the power went out in my house, I can just take it from my house, from the truck, bring it to my house. If I'm out with you, Wes, and you need power at your camp, I can take that solar charger and I can bring it to your camp. So a lot of the way that I built out that truck, a lot of the things in it have two distinct purposes. And the same goes with the wrap-on green toilet I have as well. An emergency that could also be moved and used for multiple purposes.
Yeah, you actually had a good walk around in Chrome's video of your truck. And there's definitely, I keep on mentioning this, but it's something that has come out recently with his visit with Chrome from Van City Van Life. But it's a good walk around vehicle as well as the toilet. That's something that I don't have in my truck yet.
That's the difference. I haven't got an ex-wife. I've got a wife, and when she comes camping with me, and it's 3:00 in the morning, she'd much rather just go downstairs in the camper and use the washroom than have to push her out in the woods there. Yeah, it is really great to have.
Yeah, no, I get that for sure. So my ex, if there wasn't at least a outhouse, then she didn't want to go, kind of idea. So if you're up in the middle of the mountaintop, it definitely makes a lot more sense.
I like having it too. I just don't admit to it as much.
Oh, it's for the wife. It's for the wife.
Right? Yeah. Just to finish off with the truck. So I've got the two ham radios in it, but I've also re-geared the truck. So it's got 529s in it. So the gearing is much more sympathetic to the tire size and low range, etc. And then I have about 60,000 lumens of light with the Baja Designs light bars, and then high intensity discharge, low beams, and HID fog lights as well. And the truck is EMP protected as well. So if there's ever some type of a electrical impulse from the sun or something worse, the truck will still start and run. And then compressor under the hood. And it's pretty one end to the other. It's pretty decked out. 200 watts of solar on the roof.
Yeah, solar is something that I want to learn more about. And I'll interview some other people on that. But solar is something that I can definitely see being very important, especially with having the fridge and everything else on board.
Yeah, if it's anything but nighttime, even just on an overcast day, I can run my fridge indefinitely.
Yeah.
So what I tend to do is it doesn't have a separate compartment for fridge freezer. You can do either.
Yeah.
But what I tend to do is put my frozen stuff on the bottom.
Yeah.
And then I have a little like a styrofoam blanket that separates it that I put on top. And then I put the less cold items at the top. And then I just run my fridge at 0 degrees or 1 degree.
Yeah.
And it just runs and runs. The solar charger doesn't go below 99% pretty much. We need to meet up with you one of these days and share this light bulb moment that you actually get around the Fire Reflactor. It's such a special feeling. And it's something that just needs to be shared. That was at the beginning a little bit our struggle. People understood forensically how it worked. They understand the principles of a parabolic arc and they think it's all cool. But until they actually sit in front of it, that's when we start getting the email and the people saying, unbelievable. They said, but first, I asked for it for Christmas. My wife bought it for me. She said, yeah, this is a little expensive sort of. But the first time they use it, they just say, oh yeah, we get it. We had one customer that drove from, I think they lived in Coquitlam, all the way to the border to go away for a weekend. And they forgot the Fire Reflactor. And they had messaged us that his wife made them drive home to go get it.
It's one of those things, though, too. You mentioned the fridge, how that's been such a game changer. But the Fire Reflactor is in the same department once people use it. And people are using it all over the world. I've seen a post, you mentioned Epic Family Road Trip, but there's people using this all around the world.
We're hoping that it gets enough awareness that it continues. But you're right. We have people, some really great YouTubers and things in Australia that are using it. Selling it there with the distribution becomes problematic, but that's another issue.
Yeah.
And we've got people in Israel and England and Poland and Germany, France, Italy,
Wow.
that have bought one. And then the story we get is people just go, what is that? What do you have and where is that from? And so our goal is to get that level of awareness up, and that product will inspire us to just innovate and create whatever we can find, whatever people, great relationship people and products that we can encircle that and get exposed. It's just about getting awareness and getting, as Mike calls it, the aha moment. Actually, don't ever go camping with Mike when he wants to prove the point about how much heat it is, because he'll get up 2 or 3 times during the evening and he'll take away the fire reflector and goes, what do you think of that? And then everybody goes, just put it back, will you?
Oh, that's so great.
That's why we never call it a fire reflector. We always call it the original fire reflector. That is the name of it, the original. And we're really hoping that it becomes a household name, just like a Coleman stove, or everybody knows it. People call it a skill saw. It's actually not a skill saw. It's a circular saw, but people call it a skill saw, or the same with jacuzzi and hot tub. Companies like Jacuzzi and Skill are pretty darn pleased that when people want to go buy a hot tub, they go, so let's go buy a jacuzzi, right? That's great. We want the same for MC Ranch Overland and the people's brands again. We're dealing with Paul from Equip, and he's National Luna and Easy On and Alubox, all amazing products. And for us Overlanders, a lot of those are household names, but people that aren't aficionados within the industry, they might not know all those. But we really want the Fire Reflector to be broader than that, because Sam, for example, is from Ontario, and there's a lot of cottage life there, where you have Airbnb people, cottage life people, hunters, where they have wall tents, and you have your wood stove and your wall tent. Again, you put a fire reflector around a wood stove in a wall tent. Now the heat's not going up, it's protecting the tent, and you're just rocketing that heat across. It's not just about overlanding. It's about, you could just as well go to Vancouver Island, rent a cabin for the weekend, bring your fire reflector, have a campfire on the beach. So we want to share and hear about all the ways that people are using their fire reflector in their own little world, whatever that may be.
That's an excellent idea. Something I hadn't really thought much about, but cabins is a perfect example, right? Or Airbnbs with cabins. And that's a whole other market that's available for you guys.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the RVing industry, of course. When you're dealing with propane fire pits, I know you see on YouTube some of these elderly people that buy these pusher buses in the States. They can easily be spending $1 or $2 million on a bus, but they're not going to go out and chop wood and have a fire. But they're certainly going to go into the little luggage thing in the bottom and pull out their propane fire pit, light that up, which is generally a fairly ineffective piece of kit. But now you put a fire reflector around it, and now you have this wealthy 80-year-old couple that are sitting in front of their $1 million coach with a little campfire, but they're in this nest. They're just loving this. And matter of fact, if they get an aluminum bus, they can get more reflectivity off the bus going the other way. So they can have it right in the middle.
Yeah.
But
the big thing that I've noticed is that it's one of those products where word of mouth is, once people see it, and I imagine that's been a huge player in your guys's sales and stuff like that, is word of mouth and people actually seeing their neighbor having that product and inquiring about it.
That's with all things like content, and that the credibility comes from the experience. Like you see it, you hear about it, you intellectually understand what it's supposed to be, but when you get to experience it and the performance and what it does to enhance that experience and all these other wonderful benefits that come from it for other reasons, that's really what sells it. And that's really cool about this community, the Overlanding. We've been wonderfully supported through it.
I think we have talked long enough.
Yeah,
We could definitely talk
we're gonna
more
have to
for
do
sure.
a Scotch one, okay,
Yes.
Wes. And yeah, you and I and our team, let's get together for a camp thing. And a big component of that is we'll do a cooking. I will, whenever we get together, I'll do a Scotch tasting and make it a fun educational event.
There we go. Sounds like a good idea. So once again, we're talking with Mike and Sam from MC Ranch Overland, and you can check them out on all the socials as MC Ranch Overland, as well as mcranchoverland.com. As I've mentioned numerous times through here, check out their YouTube channel. It has a lot of good videos explaining how things are working, as the original Fire Reflactor, but also the new Harvester campfire holder bag thingamajig. Mike explains it a lot better than I do in his video. So definitely check out MC Ranch Overland on YouTube as well. And I know Mike also had a really good explanation on the TJM cooking apparatus as well on their YouTube video as well. Definitely worth checking them out. Click and subscribe and all that as well. Guys, the last question we ask every guest is, what Canadian would you like to listen to in the 4x4 Canada podcast?
I'm going to drill down on just one right now. I'd love to see Ray Highland. Has he been on yet?
He has.
In
fact,
okay.
We had such a great conversation. I had such a great conversation with him and Marianne that I split it into two. We talked about the BC Overland Rally, and then the last part of the conversation was about their trip from England to Singapore, I believe it was.
Yeah.
In the Land Rover. And that was worthy of a whole separate episode because it's such a wonderful story. They are such neat people. And that trip from, I believe it was from London to Singapore, I believe, in that early Land Rover. Such a great story. Such nice people.
So the one that I'd really like to support specifically now, he's such a beautiful guy, super hardworking, good work ethic, and entrepreneur from the feet up. And that's Dave from Blind Man Overland, yep. Dave Dion. Great guy, working hard. Manufacturing in Canada is tricky. So he has lots of challenges like we have experienced.
Yep.
I think he has a great story to tell. And he's very community orientated. And he is also a curator of the off-road or outdoor expo that's going to be near Jasper every year. So he's heavily involved in that. And I'd really like to see him and his brand get supported there. I think he's really excellent. His heart's into it. We're going to be at that show next year. And it's not just overlanding, it's outdoor lifestyle. So it could include hunting, fishing, and all that type of stuff. I had a beautiful venue just outside of Jasper. So I'd like to give a big shout out to him. And I think that having him on this podcast would be excellent.
Yeah, Dave and I have been talking. We first officially met actually at the BC Overland Rally in Merritt and sat by each other, and we had a few drinks together and stuff like that. And great guy. His Yucca campers, great quality. He's going through the struggles of trying to be a manufacturer in Canada as well, but he's persevering on, and he's got a great product that if I had the coin, I would definitely grab myself as well too. So I agree with you, Mike. He's definitely a guy I want to get on the podcast for sure.
In the same question, Mike mentioned two people. So Ray Highland and especially Marianne and Dave Dion are people. Interestingly, both of them are just advocates of outdoor living in that, and they're running these amazing events that we as overlanders and outdoor enthusiasts get to go see. So it couldn't help endorse them even that much more. One of the things that Mike got me into this is, and we consider Peter and Carolyn Van Stralen from the Epic Family Road Trip friends and true supporters of us and our brand is amazing. So of somebody to interview, put on your list for the future is, I can't wait to hear the stories that come out of Peter Jr., Peter and Carolyn's son, and his epic adventures. And he's coming into his own as an adventurist and expeditionist, and he would be an amazing Canadian interview if you keep him in mind.
And with him supporting and working with Expedition Overland and learning to become a professional cinematographer and the curator on Clay and Rochelle's behalf, basically. So I agree with Sam 100%. When we're seeing the Africa series, for example, with Expedition Overland, we don't really see Peter Jr., but he's in the background doing all the filming. So hearing that story would be so special, and it would really honor him as well.
That's a great idea. To be honest with you, I hadn't thought of him separately. I do have his parents on my list, and I know they're just finishing up their cross Canada trip, so I was waiting until they finished that to talk to them. But Peter Jr., I think it's a great idea that I had not considered.
No, I have it in the back of my mind as there's going to be some interesting stories and there's more yet to come because he's got a wonderful family. They just, in this community of outdoor experience, especially overlanding, I don't think there's a better group of advocacy than that family. They represent what we stand.
Great ideas, great suggestion, guys. I really appreciate it. And I want to really thank you guys for coming on today. I know we talked for a bit here, so I want to thank you for taking the time to talk with us about overlanding and all your awesome products.
Thank you very much. And I would be remiss, just a comment. We're being interviewed today on Remembrance Day. So
yes, I should have mentioned that earlier.
Everybody remembers.
Yeah, lots to be thankful for today, that's for sure.
And I did it in our Instagram post that thankful today, but we need to remember and be thankful every day for those who have put so much on the line for our freedom.
People should keep it in their mind as well that you don't need to be a professional to be in service of others. And I think that the Boy Scout theory of have you done something good for somebody today can translate into a life of service and caring. And I think that life is a mirror, and if you're willing to give it sincerely and honestly to help people, I think you get nothing. It comes back to you in spades.
I'm truly grateful.
Definitely. Awesome, guys. I really appreciate you taking the time today to spend it with us, and we will chat soon.
Loved it, Wes. Very appreciative. Thank you very much. Say hi to Trish for us, and look forward to the next opportunity. And there might be a Scotch in there. Thanks.
I'll give you my classic thumbs up when my meals turn out.
There we go. Awesome, guys. Thanks.
Take care.